I think we can go ahead and go live.
Okay, give it just about 5 seconds. You're live.
Great. I'll call the Bid Advisory Board meeting to order on this day of April 14th, 2020. Let's go ahead and move on to agenda item number 2, roll call.
Okay, John Dixon.
You're muted, John.
Present.
John Glidewell.
Here.
Cindy Wagner.
Here.
Chair Marcus Magdaleno.
Present. Okay. And do we take note of members of the staff or any public that are present?
There's no public present. Staff, Adrian Thompson and Angie Lane from Planning and Building are here.
Wonderful. And BMC staff?
Travis Scott, Executive Director, Visit Mendocino County.
Wonderful. Moving right along to agenda item number 3, matters from the staff. Do we have any?
No matters from staff.
All right. Agenda item number 4, communications received and filed. Do we have any?
No.
No communications received or filed.
All right. And agenda item number 5, matters from the public. Seeing as we have no members of the public, we will move along to agenda item number 6, starting with 6A, continue discussion and direction concerning the draft annual report. So the best way we probably could go through this, per a suggestion from Travis, is first let's start with reworking the recommendations. We'll go through, I think we should go through the previous year recommendations, look through any updated status reports or responses to those, if there are any, and then move on to the current year recommendations. Then after that, we can look over the executive summary that I wrote. And then after that, we can take note, open it up for any items from the board to be addressed in the report, and then move to approve the report. And hopefully this can happen in this meeting, and it will be our last meeting for this current upcoming year's fiscal report. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. We could open up the bid draft report, and we all could go to page 16, section 6, actions taken in response to fiscal year 2020-21 bid advisory board recommendations. Travis and county staff, has there been any updates since the last time we viewed this report, or changes to the responses for the previous year's this current year's recommendations?
No updates or changes from MCTC.
Okay. I just had one question regarding recommendation number 1 in section 6A, recommendations actionable by the Mendocino County Tourism Commission, regarding when Point Arena started collecting again. Just out of curiosity, I know it says that as of December 8th, they were put back into the assessment, but does that mean that they started collecting the assessment as of that date, or did it start like the following quarter?
I believe was the following quarter we decided on, right, Travis?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Just to keep Sherry from hating us.
Right. I mean, obviously they weren't given the TOT and bid forms for that current quarter they were in. So they started as of
should have been April 1,
1st.
I believe. Yeah.
This month.
Yeah.
No, wait.
Yeah. It is April.
No, 2020. Wait a second, now I'm confused.
No.
Last April.
April 1st, 2021.
This April.
Okay. It's not totally clear to me. I don't know if that's something that might be worth putting in just for clarification. But once again, I might be getting too nitpicky. I I like to think of like if I were to reading this report for the very first time, not knowing what's going on. Is that something we could just quickly put in there? Does that sound okay to the rest of the board members to add that? Travis?
In the interest of time, no, because I would need to work with Sherry to make sure that we are absolutely correct.
Okay.
Our date. And I don't know that I could get a response quick enough
Okay.
to make that change with exact information.
Okay. Nope.
That's
In light of that, then we will not make that change, so that way we can finalize this report, and that little bit of information can be sought after in another report. Okay. Do any of the board members have any questions regarding the previous year's, this current year's recommendations before we move on to this upcoming year's recommendations?
No.
No questions.
Okay.
No, all good. Thank you.
Let's move on to page 18, section 7. Bid advisory board recommendations for this upcoming 2021-2022 fiscal year. So these have been, a few of these have been reworded from the last meeting, correct?
Wait, sorry, Travis, or Marcus, where are you?
Page 18, section 7A,
Are you,
recommendations actionable by the county, by the Mendocino County Tourism Commission.
Marcus, which
Yeah.
which report are you reading from?
The one you emailed me to a few days ago.
The actual formatted report, or
It looks formatted. It's got the image in the front page of the trees.
because in my version of the report, it starts on page 19.
Okay, hold on.
21, 22 bid advisory board recommendations at the bottom of page 19.
All right, hold on. I'm pulling
It's-
up the one off
it's
the
the
county
bottom.
website.
It's the bottom of page 18 for me as well, Travis.
It's 18 for ours. It's posted online also.
Strange. Oh,
18 for mine too.
sorry. Yeah, sorry, that's my error. I worked ahead and added an additional page on some formatting issues that I had. So
No
let me
worries.
pull up the correct one so I'm on the same page as everybody. My
Take your
apologies.
time with that, Travis, while we just look through one last time, read through the recommendations on our own.
Well, I guess I wanted to go back. I think you jumped. So just general comments. There's, I found a bunch of grammatical things and spelling errors throughout. And I don't know if we want to take the time here to do that, but for example, on page 16, under actions taken in response, section 6, I guess, 6A1, completed, it says status update completed at is capitalized. I really don't want to nitpick here, but I think it all should be right. And I don't think that using the meeting to do that is the best place. So I'm not sure what to do.
John, let's go through and focus on the content. And then after we're done with that, we can go through and point out any, go with a fine comb, and point out any grammatical or grammatical errors or anything that needs to be.
Could I respond to that, Marcus?
Go ahead, Cindy.
I did some editing and already sent it to Travis yesterday.
Mhm.
Just on the first two sections that were the very beginning of the report, and I found, I don't know, lots and lots of errors in the new content. I sent
Right.
that to
Mhm.
Travis already because it was a lot to actually process in this meeting.
Right.
But
Okay.
Travis, I don't know if you want to make a suggestion for how we do editing. Do you want us to do it outside of this meeting? Like you and I did yesterday?
I think that's the best way. Let's work on the content, and then the editing can be done after approval of content.
Okay, sounds good, because there's quite a bit, actually. I think it would
Right.
really make this meeting cumbersome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So just a reminder,
That
this
sounds like
is 1 hour.
excellent. As minor grammatical corrections won't won't affect the content that they could be made after.
Right.
Or,
And I would suggest emailing those to Travis so he can coordinate if you have caught duplicate errors amongst yourself, which is typical in our commissions that various people find the same errors. And remember that this is a 1 hour special meeting and we'll be closing at 2 p.m. if not earlier to switch to our next scheduled meeting.
thank you
So
for
let's jump into content.
Yes.
Okay, can I, then,
Right.
I think this is a content thing before you, I think you jumped ahead past this, but on the top of page 18, number 1B, number 1, it references MCTC recommendation number 6, and I don't see a number 6, unless it's the one above.
Page 18.
Yes, B1, top of page 18. Number 1 says, as referenced MCTC recommendation number 6. And is that a correct reference?
Yes.
Is it from above?
To
From
the
above.
page above,
Previous section.
previous section.
Previous section, all right. Okay.
Good.
Hmm.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the recommendations from the 2021 fiscal year? Hearing none, let's move on to the recommendations for the 2021-22 fiscal year. Let's start with the recommendations actionable by the Mendocino County Tourism Commission. Do any of the board members have questions or comments regarding either of those 4? Hearing none, let's move on to section B, recommendations actionable by the County of Mendocino for the 21-22 fiscal year.
Okay, I have a couple things here.
Go ahead, John Dixon.
Can you hear me all right? I'm in a
We can hear you just fine.
noisy, empty room here, bouncy. Well, this follows Travis's, I guess we're going to talk about it next, I think it was Travis's, one of the letters, the opening letters. I guess this is not reading how I thought we ended this last time. To be specific, number 2 says as an alternate option. I
So-
thought we discussed doing an and or.
Can I stop and remind everybody at the end of the last meeting, we were going to read the full report and come back with a recommended way to adjust those 2 so that this bid board was happy with the way that they read.
So we can do that right now.
Yes.
If we're not pleased with the way this is set up, my recommendation would be to have the 2 options as subcategories of one recommendation, that the Board of Supervisors adopt one or both of the following recommendations. And then we have A, change lodging owner definition, and B, change at-large large lodging seat to yada yada. That would be my recommendation, so the 2 don't seem higher priority than either or. Any other input from the board members?
I have some. John, I won't step over your position in the line here. Did you want to respond, John Dixon?
No, I think I'll go last to see if I feel like I'm in a little alternate universe here, based on what we talked about the last couple of meetings, and so I'm happy to hear what everybody else says.
Okay. Marcus, I agree with that. And the way that you just said it was one or both, which I think is how I originally suggested that we move to include these. And that would just mean, hey, if we want to go that route, we would have to change the language a little bit so that it doesn't look like an or scenario, that it looks like an and or scenario. And that's where I would stand.
Cindy?
Yeah, I think what you recommended, Marcus, is fine, using the word both. I looked closely at your executive summary letter, where you do give more explanation when we get to that point. And but I think I would tend to lean towards the preference of them being equally balanced. And using the word both, I think would help to make that clear.
Okay. John Dixon?
Agreed.
Okay, so one recommendation is that the Board of Supervisors adopt one or both of the following recommendations.
So how about starting it with the Bid Advisory Board recommends that the Board of Supervisors adopt one or both of the following options to allow, and let me work on this for just another minute. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves.
To allow or increase.
Yeah, that sounds like a
Cool.
good introduction.
Advisory.
And then Travis is working on. Is that the introduction to the report?
No, I think Travis is working on rewording the recommendations. And while he's doing that, we can continue to have discussion. You probably all read the executive summary, and in that I felt the need to give more clarification to these two recommendations. So so that way the Board of Supervisors have a little bit more of where this is coming from.
Yeah, and with in respect to our 40 minutes left in this meeting, because this is brand new content from your executive summary, would you mind if we just quickly read through the bottom half of your summary that deals with this topic?
Yes, feel free. While Travis reworks the recommendations, and Travis, let us know when you're getting close to done with that.
So just keep going, you guys.
In the meantime, let's go ahead and go up to
Page 4.
Page 4. And I'm happy to get any input from any of the other board members as to my executive summary. Yeah, any suggestions, any constructive criticism, happy to hear it. Writing isn't my strongest. I'm more of a math and science kind of guy, but
I thought you did well, Marcus. You wrote the content well. And if does this board, do we want to read this out loud real quick, or does everyone want to take just 2 minutes to read it individually?
Let's read it individually, but to summarize, my point of writing the executive summary is basically, once again, if someone were to pick this report up for the very first time, or even a new Board of Supervisor, to allow them to have a summarized version of why this report exists, the purpose of it, and then any additional information that I wanted them to be aware of. So, so the first part is that a summary. Second, is kind of what's been going on due to COVID. The third part of it addresses the major topic, kind of the major topic of this year's recommendations, which address the small pool of potential MCTC board members to fill the large lodging seats. So that starts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 paragraphs in.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, John.
I think we've all read it, and we do have short time. I would say that I agree you did a good job with summarizing it and sort of illuminating or expanding on what it is. So I think that's good, and it breaks it out a bit. There's just a couple things. I think when I see either or, to me that's the same thing, and I think different than what we're talking about. Haven't we been maybe saying and or, so that the idea is it can be both?
Oh yes, thank you.
Or one or the other, and that was a red flag for me. Either or is not necessarily what I think we talked about.
You are correct.
Yeah.
Either or is the same thing.
Okay. So I have that recommendation rewritten as one recommendation with.
Hold on. Let's everybody go back down to page 18.
Sorry.
And then go ahead, Travis.
So I have it written as recommendation number 1, and then it's got a header, and then the two options below, and it reads: the Bid Advisory Board recommends that the Board of Supervisors adopt one or both of the following options to allow the pool of applicants for the Bid Advisory Board and the Board of Directors of the Mendocino County Tourism Commission. 1, change the definition section of the bid ordinance to include general manager or similar employee designated as responsible for top-level business operations. In the following section, click here to view, and or as an alternate option to the above. I'll take that out. Sorry. The bid advisory board. Sorry, I just have to take line out. Recommendations. The bid advisory board urges MCTC, the County of Mendocino, to change the large at-large lodging board seat to medium or large at-large. This change should be made in the ordinance and bylaws of the bid advisory board and MCTC. Click here to view the ordinance.
Okay, I would suggest we get rid of the word urges and use recommend, even though I know we use recommend so much in this, but for consistency, I mean, we are recommending it. We're urging both, but did we say urge in the first one?
No.
No.
How about I take that part out, the bid advisory board, and just start with, like I did on the top.
The first one.
Change the large at large.
Yes, thank you.
Start there.
I like that.
Agreed.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
And then
Sounds
Travis,
good.
I'm sorry, when you were reading the first part of it, my internet must have gone wonky because I missed some of the wording. There's either you can reword it, or are we allowed to display your report on a shared screen?
Can't share screen on this, I don't believe. Can I?
No, you can't. Oh wait, you're a panelist. Yes, you can.
Okay, then I'll share my screen. Stand by.
Thank you.
Make sure. Yep, cool.
Okay,
Is that visible, or do I need to zoom in?
I'm good.
So that's what I just rewrote in yellow.
Travis, I'm sorry. Can you please zoom in?
Yep. Hold on.
Thank you very much.
Do we feel we need to be specific as to which pool of applicants, and say the pool of applicants for the large lodging seats,
Well,
or for just the lodging seats?
it's ultimately opening the pool for everybody by changing the definition.
Well, just the lodging seats, actually, not everybody.
Right.
To adopt both the following options to allow for the lodging pool of applicants with the lodging seats.
Pool of lodging applicants.
Wait a second. For the bid advisory board, I don't recall including that. We already have. Oh, shoot.
If we're the definition is changing both the bid and MCTC.
Oh, in the ordinance, that one definition covers both organizations, both boards.
Correct.
Okay, then there's no avoiding it. Got it. Oh, then my statement in the executive summary that the bid advisory board already allows for this is erroneous.
Well, we have allowed for it by having Marcus on the board.
Travis or John. Gladwell.
Sorry, yeah, John. I was looking at your picture and.
Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, I referenced in my executive summary that the bid advisory board already allows for authorized representatives, non-lodging owners, to sit on the board. Apparently, apparently the ordinance technically doesn't allow for that, but it exists in the bid advisory board bylaws, though, doesn't it? That a representative can.
I don't recall exactly. I'd have to look it up, but we're
Okay. We play it safe and include the bid advisory board as well, because in the ordinance, that definition covers both boards. So,
Did his
so regardless of if we made an exception or if it already exists,
I think it was him
we can
because
go
the
ahead
owl's lights
and
are
keep
still
this
on.
wording as it is
Yeah.
to allow for the pool of lodging applicants for the bid advisory board as well as the board of directors of County, Mendocino County Tourism Commission to allow the pool.
I feel like we're missing an action. Allow the
Yeah,
pool
allow
of
the
lodging
pool, yeah.
applicants
To
to be
increase.
increased.
To allow.
I was gonna say to widen
Whatever.
the pool of lodging applicants.
Yeah, we're just missing an action for me. Action verb.
Widen, increase, and
Oh yeah, increase is good too.
the main purpose of this was for the increase of the board members on the tourism commission. Can we put that first, and then put the bid advisory board second? Is that all right with the rest of the board members?
Yes, that sounds
Yeah.
good. And I think increase the pool. I think we all, as we were chatting there, thought that increase was better than widen.
What does the board feel?
But because it's
Agreed.
a pool, you could say deepen, but that doesn't. I'm just sort of joking.
I just have a quick question just to bring clarification to things I've heard some of you say in the past since it's our last meeting. What is your actual preference? Do you prefer, would you be happy if just one of these two were adopted, or is your preference actually that both of them would be adopted? What is your actual preference?
Are you asking each individual board member
Yeah,
to chime in?
yeah.
Let's, yeah, go ahead. Let's start with you, Cindy. What is your preference? Or do you want to be last?
No, I think I'd be fine with either or. Just, we've talked about this so often. My question is, if they look at this, will they actually see what your preference is? Because you might want, if you do prefer, the majority of us do prefer that both, you could add the word preferably, adopt one or preferably both. I'm just wondering, what would make you happiest? What would you be most comfortable with? Are you happy with just one of the two, just because it increases the pool, or would you actually prefer that it be both of them?
Who wants to start? John Dixon?
Yeah, I would prefer both. And if you ask me if I prefer one over the other, I would have it the other way around, the one that leads. And I know we're trying not to show preference by the order that they're in, the way one has to be above the other, I suppose. But so to answer Cindy's question, I think, or preferably both is good, because then it sort of goes both ways, meaning it's expanding in two ways that were issues for different groups originally, and those who were involved originally would sort of be having their position change equally or both. And so for that reason, I think it feels more, not fair, maybe that's not the right word, but equitable, and also increases the pool more. So I don't know if it's realistic to think that they would do both, because one of them seems to be harder than the other. The definition, just to remind us, is an easier change. But also, I'll just finish with this. Changing the definition changes it not just for large properties, but all across the board, if there's a general manager at a medium or small, I suppose. So I don't know if we want to say that in here, or if that's implied that the definition is global, and increases the pool, not just for large, but across the board, which isn't a bad thing, but maybe it's worth saying somewhere, maybe in Marcus's executive summary. But okay, and I'll end with that. But yes, I would say to add one or preferably both seems like a good change to me.
All right, John Glidewell?
I prefer both and would not recommend changing the way it's written or adding language. I think the point comes across. It's communicated well enough as is.
Okay. Cindy?
Yeah, I think that I think it's fine written as is. I just we've discussed this so much. I just wanted to make sure that what we're finally ending with, everybody is content, because it's looking like they might move for just one of them to be adopted. And would you prefer that not be that way?
Right. My opinion on the matter is I like slow moves when it comes to changing things. And my initial thing was one or the other, but I go back and forth because they both have, like I said in my executive summary, they both have their pros and cons. I started to get into the pros and cons in my executive summary, and then I was like, you know what, I'm not going to go there. If there's discussion about this in the Board of Supervisors meeting, both Travis and I will be there to give more input. But John Dixon, you do point out that it would be good to mention that one. I don't know if it's really a pro or con in my executive summary, that the option to change the definition of lodging owner, it is across the board, and it not just increases the pool for large lodging, but increases the pool for medium and small.
Just to throw it out there, by changing the definition, it's implied that it's across the board.
Right. Just so that they're clear, I think in my executive summary, I might imply that it's just for large lodging, which is something we can look at in a second to correct, so I don't give the incorrect impression.
Am I adding preferably?
Hold on, we're still having a discussion about that.
Okay.
So I'm kind of on the fence, back and forth, and hearing that the majority of the other board members prefer both, I'll kind of lean towards that direction as well. I do share John Dixon's suggestion that if there is one that's going to go first, that it be the changing of the at-large seat to medium or at-large in the order of how we present this. But, is that really vital given that we've said, and I've said in the executive summary, that we be considered equally. No preference given to either one. But obviously when you present one first, you can't help but feel that it's a little bit, preferred. So we just have to be very clear. Yes, Travis, it sounds like if the board agrees, we want to put adopt one or preferably both in the wording. I mean, if that really is the feeling of this board, and we want to give that feeling to the Board of Supervisors to help them make the decision, then we should put that in there. Is that all agreed on to put adopt one or preferably both?
I'm fine with that, and I think that by putting in the word preferably both, it balances the order of the two that are listed, because it kind of, we state, we prefer that it's both, and here they are, rather than it communicating that there's some kind of a preference according to the order.
That's a
Yes, and
John Gladwell first.
Thanks, Marcus. Yes, I think it's good, and I would also urge you, Marcus, not to include too much more verbiage in your executive summary about how it applies to the scope, because at that point it may just be redundant and confusing, and I would hate for the Board of Supervisors to say, are these recommendations going to create a domino effect? Is that what he is suggesting? I don't know. I don't want it to muddy up the waters too much for them to say, let's put the brakes on this until we can really look at it maybe next year or something. I don't know. I'm just thinking that we've provided enough information.
Okay. John Dixon?
I was just saying, I hadn't considered what Cindy said, and I think it has the effect by saying, or preferably both, up at the top, does what she said. It does kind of show that we see them weighted the same. And if for no other reason, that's a good point. And so, yeah, I'd go that way if everybody agrees.
Okay. I think we're all kind of in agreement that this structure we're seeing in front of us for this recommendation is in its final form. Travis, just so we have all the information, when is the at-large lodging seat?
When every at-large seat goes up.
When is it?
with every other lodging seat. Same time.
Aren't they staggered? I thought they were staggered.
Well, but they all fall. Oh, you're asking what year that one is
Yeah,
available?
I'm sorry. I'd like just if, because to John's comment, John Gladwell's comment, if this isn't adopted this year, whether it even makes a difference. Because if that at-large seat, if they adopt the change of the at-large to medium and at-large, at-large.
2021, this year.
Okay, so it is kind of important that if they want to make that change, it will.
But no, nothing. So
Right. No, if they make the change of the ordinance, it will exist in this upcoming year, and that option for changing the at-large to medium and at-large will go into effect. And
well, we can't say that it will go into effect. They may say, yes, we believe in that, and support it, but the time it takes for county council, PBS, all of the other departments to pull off a change like that, we can't say that it would happen by this election period.
Okay.
There's just no way.
All right.
Correct.
Okay. So is the board good with what's in front of them for this recommendation?
Good for me.
Content-wise, yes. And the way it reads, I guess the very first one where it says change the definition section of the bid ordinance to include, and then in quotes, we've all read it 100 times, but I think where it says to include, maybe somehow say in addition to whatever it is now, which is owner or operator or whatever the words are, to add to. So definition of who is eligible in the board, that's referenced below, to add to the definition of who is eligible, not just somehow being clear that it's not just that we're not replacing anything.
Yes, John Dixon, I understand you, and I think we had that earlier, and it seems to have changed. But change the definition in the section of ordinance of lodging owner to include. So we just need to change the definition in the bid ordinance of lodging operator or lodging owner. Travis, you would have the exact wording on that. Change the definition within the bid ordinance. Change the definition of lodging operator within the bid ordinance to include. Change the definition.
Or maybe just say there which section, the title of the section.
I think it's important to show that we're changing the definition of lodging operator in the glossary of terms at the beginning of the ordinance. I think that's important, and thank you for pointing it out, John. Change the definition of lodging operator within the bid ordinance.
Hold on 1 second.
It's just, as you're typing it, it's kind of like the one at the bottom. It says what it was or what it is, and then change to. And it's just, without having to reference or click, people will see what's was and what it will be.
So maybe change the section of the bid ordinance defining lodging operator to include. Does that sound okay, Travis? Change the section of the bid ordinance defining lodging operator to include.
In the definition section of the bid ordinance, lodging operator should include general manager or similar employee designated as responsible.
We had to have change in there somewhere. Change the definition. Or
should include.
Change to include. Should include doesn't seem clear to me. That's just my opinion, though.
Maybe say in the bid ordinance, comma, change, quote, lodging operator to include.
There we go. And is that how it's defined in the bid ordinance, Travis? Lodging operator?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. That looks better.
In the definitions section of the bid ordinance, change lodging operator to include. Okay, is the rest of the board good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Let's consider that finalized. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. All right. Any questions, comments, or discussion on the remaining recommendations for the County of Mendocino? Which there's 4 of them. Well, now there's 3.
Would it be possible to go back to stop sharing screen? It's just a little hard for me to see it this way.
Yep.
Thank you.
So now, Travis, I presume recommendation 3 will be recommendation 2, and 4 will be 3.
Correct.
Can I ask a process question here?
Go ahead, John.
We added this meeting thinking it would be final, but am I right that we have a meeting on the books officially? Is it next week or at some point? And if so, is it still in time to be able to do the wordsmithing that we talked about, where it could be resent to us and we could do like a track change kind of thing for Travis?
We're past track changes, guys. We've had all these meetings and all these drafts with track changes on, and we're not going to get this in time if we try to do another draft with track changes.
Okay, well, I saw things like the word feel was spelled Phil, F-I-L-L.
That was in my section, I think.
You know what I mean?
John, may I speak? I think we should just focus on the content, and I think that we can also, after Travis has updated after the report from this meeting, he can resend it out to all of us. We can review it for any grammatical errors or anything, and we can send that to him. I don't think those changes require board approval. They won't change the content of the report, as long as they don't change the content of the report. If it is a change that might, I'm sure Travis will make us aware, but I'm hoping that we can get this report to a place where it's finalized with all the changes we've discussed and made that Travis will still have to implement. But I'm hoping that at the end of this meeting, this board will feel comfortable enough to have this this report finalized enough to be put on the on the agenda of the Board of Supervisors meeting.
And John, Dixon, just to kind of give you some peace of mind, I went through that pretty detailed, and I sent Travis a list of probably 20 changes, and it included the one you just mentioned. But we could all do that. You know, you could go maybe after Travis gives us the new one, just send him just a quick little list. This is the wrong word usage, but I went through it pretty closely yesterday and sent it to him.
Great. I mean, yeah, I saw, Marcus, there were some things there, but I mean, the very first word of the very first thing had a typo.
Right.
So,
but what I had to do is I had to get it to the county to get posted for this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized there's some changes in moving from Word to InDesign. Those little changes we're going to fix. I don't want that to be anything that holds this process up.
And if a few grammatical errors get slipped through, as long as the content is clear, that's the most important thing. I think the Board of Supervisors won't give us a hard time for a few minor grammatical errors, as long as the content is clear. And now, given that we have 12 minutes left in this meeting, I would like us to quickly address the executive summary that I wrote for any comments or suggested edits, if that's all right with the rest of the board to move on to.
Good with me.
Okay.
Yep, that sounds good. Let's look at that. I had a sentence, let me try to find it, that I didn't feel like
It's clear.
was clear. Adopting one will provide a slower change to those allowed to fill the lodging seats, and adopting of both provide considerably more potentials. I feel like you might want to reword that as a standalone sentence. I mean, it does make
Yeah.
sense in context if you look closely, but as a standalone for people looking at this for the first time, a little
It
more
was-
clarity on what potentials means.
It was my attempt to kind of generally summarize the pros and cons, but I think actually having read it through multiple times, I think I'd like to just remove from both have their pros and cons to the end of that paragraph. I think ending it with, however, it is strongly urged that at least one be adopted, ending it there, I think that'll be less confusing. Travis, do you mind removing both have their pros and cons and removing adopting one will provide slower change, blah, blah, blah.
Fine.
That's where I was going to get into, what John Dixon was talking about, that keep in mind that a con or a pro could be that it opens up across the board. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for that, Cindy.
That's a good change, Marcus. I agree with that. That's good.
Yeah, I want to remove anything that's unclear or
Yeah.
ambiguous or hard to interpret. I did have one question about my the structure of the seats. I wanted to get your opinion whether this is confusing. Where it says large lodging coastal, large lodging inland, medium or large lodging at large. Technically, medium lodging, and why I said inland or coastal is technically at large, but I put inland or coastal. And for consistency, I guess I should. We should probably change those to at large rather than say inland or coastal. I just didn't want. I wanted to be as clear as possible to the Board of Supervisors how they're structured. I'm presuming that they know when we say at large, that means inland or coastal, but I don't want to presume too much. Did that catch anyone's eye, or is it
I think if you say at large, it's consistent with everything else. I think that'll be understood. If
so do you think
Where is that?
page 5, towards the very end? So when I say medium inland or coastal or small inland or coastal, I guess I should say medium at large, small at large.
because then you're consistent with how it's been described historically too, if you call it at large, because that's what it is.
Yeah. Did you get that change, Travis? And then
And I wanted
there's
to-
just grammatical errors. Go ahead, John Dixon.
Well, I'm trying to bring it up here. In your letter, you actually write as if you're writing to the Board of Supervisors, right? You say, "I'll see you at the meeting," kind of thing in your closing.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I don't know if that's the format of how this is usually done, or if it is sort of a cover letter, kind of how you're writing that. And that's a content thing that I don't know if
Well, I had a question about that, whether it should be called executive summary, because it's not really a summary. It is like a forward or a letter from me. So
I mean, it doesn't bother me that much. I just didn't know if that was a typical format of, it almost got personal, like, see you at the meeting kind of closing.
yeah,
And it just caught my eye, that's all.
Travis,
I'll leave it
traditionally, prior to me being chair, when Wendy was chair prior, what was the executive summary comprised of and the purpose of?
An overview, a summary of the report.
Oh, okay. So which I didn't really give. Would it be more appropriate to change this title from executive summary to statement from chair or letter from the chair, or?
Adrian, what's your thought on that?
I kind of like making it letter from the chair and changing our past precedents. Just making it a little bit more personable might have better results. Just thinking about how the reports have been received. Typically, at least 2 board members do put a lot of thought into it. But beyond that, this is a whole new board. I'm not sure how they will take it. I almost feel like being more personable may be better accepted, but that's just my take on this initial board.
Thank you, Adrian. I mean, it's just because if it is intended to be a summary of the report, my question is, why does the chair need to write it when staff writes most of the report? When I guess my impression of it was that it was something from the chair to the board of
The
supervisors.
reason that, because I'm not the executive of this group. You're the executive of this committee.
Right.
So that's why the executive writes the executive summary. It's like my staff works on my annual report, doesn't write the executive summary for the organization. I write that.
Right. Right. So it won't affect, I mean, we are allowed to change the title of this section. And if so, I would like to take Adrian's suggestion and retitle it to maybe something along the lines of letter from the chair, or comment from the chair, or opening from the chair, forward from the chair.
Well, yeah.
It's not really a summary. I mean, what I wrote.
I think letter from the chair is just fine from my position.
Okay, is the rest of the board okay with that?
Yeah, that sounds good. Letter from the chair sounds good.
Yes.
Great. And I found a few grammatical errors, which I will send to you personally in an email, which I'm sure Cindy probably found as well.
Yeah, I've got like 20, Marcus.
From my section alone?
Yeah, not grammatical, but 20 nigglies, but nothing that was other than that sentence I mentioned was content oriented, all just little niggly stuff.
Okay. Then given that this is a letter from the chair, ending it with, both Travis and I will be present at the meeting and able to respond to questions and concerns. That seems appropriate to leave in there, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes, I like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is more comfortable, and also to me, it's more like a cover letter. If that's your intent, then it's good.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Now we have 5 minutes left to address any other items in the report that board members want to bring up, if there are any. Sounds like there are not. So I guess I'm looking for a motion to approve this report with the edits discussed that Travis will still be implementing. So we can finalize.
I'll move to approve the report pending edits from staff.
I'll second.
Great. We have a motion on the floor in a second. Any discussion regarding this motion? Hearing none, should we do a roll call vote, or is an aye vote okay? Yeah.
Aye is fine.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That was 4 ayes. So. Okay, great. Then most likely, or very likely, this is our last meeting regarding for the bid advisory report regarding
I have
the
a question,
report. Go ahead, John Dixon.
just real quick. So I do like it, when our names are on, I do like it to be as clean as possible. And thank you, first of all, Travis, for all your work. I know formatting and all that stuff, it's been a lot of work and all the content, and Marcus and everybody, thank you for all that. I want to have the opportunity to do what Cindy has done too, and forward that. And my question is, what's the best way? If Cindy's already done a pass at that, is there a way to get a copy that I could just make some notes against so that I'm not duplicating? Or, with Brown Act and all those things, I wanted to just understand what the best process is, and also the easiest, given where we are in the process. But I would like to have an opportunity to do that, and just let me know the best way to do that.
Sure. So Cindy has sent me her changes. I've started working on those, which is why what I was reading from at the beginning of the meeting was different pages. So why don't I finish those and submit everything to graphics for the changes, and make sure that the formatting doesn't, get messed up. And then I can send out another copy, and feel free to look through that, because that will include Cindy's changes. Feel free to take one final look at that. And I'll let you know that the time schedule available for that process once I get this back from graphics and can resubmit to you each individually.
Great, sounds good. So in that email, just to be clear, you'll have a deadline and say, hey, read through this. If you have any changes, get back to me, but these changes to me by this date. That'll be clear in the email.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
And I
Okay,
anticipate those changes will need to be almost a 1-day turnaround to get to the board for the reserved hearing date. So if Travis emailed it out, worst case scenario, around April 19th, they would need to be completed by April 20th.
So I can have this back and probably by end of day tomorrow, let's hope,
Perfect.
which means I could get it out Friday and so have it back Monday.
Correct. Yeah, they need to send you all revisions by Monday so you have time to clean it up and send it back to me Tuesday or Wednesday at the latest.
Okay. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yes.
Fine. And I just one comment. I pretty much found the glaring things, the things that were just like, oh, that's obvious. I didn't get super detailed, but so John Dixon, you might find more things, but there's some inconsistencies throughout the whole thing of like using capitalization, using spacing and things like that. But I didn't worry about that too much. I just went for the obvious wrong word usage and wrong punctuation and where there needed to be a little bit of clarification by adding a word.
Okay, got it. Thanks for doing that too.
Sure. Happy to help.
And Travis, regarding the actual changes or suggested changes, if we're sent a PDF version, we just mark the PDF version and send it back to you.
Yeah, that's just fine. Or if you don't have access to do that, just write them in page and where, in an email,
Okay.
what page and where in that section, first sentence, second sentence, fourth paragraph, second sentence, whatever.
Gotcha.
Just note it and what the change is.
Okay. Great.
I can pretty much take whatever you guys throw at me. I just need
All
it
right.
thrown at me within the time schedule.
Sounds good.
Good. All right. We have one more agenda item. We need to approve the minutes from the last meeting of April 7th.
I'm doing a quick time check, so I'll move that.
Great.
Seconded.
John Gladwell seconded. Any discussion?
None.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. And then where's my agenda? There it is. Okay. Any matters from the bid advisory board? Hearing none, we'll move to
Just
adjourn.
thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Email me if you have
Thanks,
questions.
everyone.
But
Thank you.
Thanks.